I covered technology for Reuters TV for 8 years, and I lived in Shoreditch for a little while. Before it was called Silicon Roundabout and then Tech City, I think it was Shoreditch Triangle at the time. And I had this great honor of interviewing people about change and about new things. One of the coolest things that I ever had a chance to do in that role was to interview Peter Ackroyd on the, just in front of the Millennium Bridge, and he talked about the city of London. And he said that London is a city that's always sloughing off its own skin. Basically, you know, getting rid of the new and getting rid of the old and embracing the new. And I think that Makie is probably one of the best examples of this. It's based here in East London on Scretton Street, not too far from where Shakespeare had his first London theaters. It's a lot of pressure, I know, a lot to live up to. But there's this incredible thing that's happening in East London where you have new manifestations of creativity in a place where some of the most creative media of all time originated. So with that, I'm going to turn to Alice, and as I say, no pressure. When I first heard about Makie Lab, it was a science fiction author by the name of Cory Doctorow was telling me about his wife who had quit her job at Channel 4 to start a business making 3D printed dolls. And I thought, that sounds cool. And I also thought, that sounds crazy. So what possessed you? What made you think that there was a business in this?
The fact that dolls sell. So that was, I've never had to argue whether there's a business in toys of any kind, right? So these are customizable toys on demand, which does flip the model of existing toys, but they're also dolls. And dolls is the biggest selling toy category, and kind of always has been. Construction toys are second. So, you know, at the end of the day, we pitched up with an idea that was, hey, let's make some dolls, but let's make them here, let's make them on demand, and let's make them each individually unique to their owner instead of mass-produced, made in China, and, you know, 4 years from concept to shelf.
But you had a job, like, you know, you were an executive at Channel 4. You know,
I'm sure well-paid job.
Yeah, you had a decent salary, and you turned your back on that to say, hey, let's print some. I mean, it was unproven. Yeah. So you believed. What was the vision then that made you decide it was time? And also, I should say that Jo was with you, right? Jo Roach was one of the other co-founders.
So, well, I went and got her. So what happened was, so my background is in games, and the idea came to me. This is, if you've ever seen me talk, you will have heard this because I tell it over and over and over. But the idea came to me in 2010. So in 2009, Cory wrote this book. In this book, there are some characters who hack toys using all sorts of cool things like Arduino and stuff like that. And that was clearly kind of lodging in my brain. But at the time, Cory and I were visiting fab labs and seeing 3D printers. So I knew about 3D printing and stuff from about 2008 onwards, I'm guessing. And then in 2010, I was at this conference called Digital Kids for part of my work at Channel 4. So that's where I would go and hang out with people doing virtual worlds and games for kids, and we would talk digital stuff. And for the first time in 2010, they had co-located Digital Kids with the New York Toy Fair. And the New York Toy Fair is basically the biggest toy fair pretty much, I think, in the world. Mm-hmm. And it is a giant production that kind of takes over half of New York. And so here we were, and the digital stuff was all in the basement, and the physical stuff was all upstairs, and they were co-located but still separated by two kind of, you know, a long distance of corridors and fire doors, but also just emotionally separated. And I was downstairs, and I think it was Michael Acton Smith from Moshi, but it could have been the guy from Club Penguin. But anyway, this guy got off stage, and he'd just been talking about his virtual world that sold virtual goods and had 50 million kids in it. And this guy at the back who'd come down from the toy fair, and you could tell because he was a lot older, but he had all the gear on. And he was like, all this screen-based business, don't you just want kids to go outside and play with a hoop and a stick? And it was one of those moments where it was like, that genie, there no longer needs to be that separation. If a kid goes out, yes, you want them to go outside, and they probably will, and they might have a screen in their pocket, and then they might bring the stick back in and start bashing things inside the house. I mean, why separate them, right? Let them blend. And then I was like, so why can't you make dolls out of avatars? And so I went upstairs, dinosaurs out of dinosaurs, cars out of cars. I went upstairs and had a look at all the toys and walked this giant floor, and it was just piles of the same sort of thing. So it's like books, plushies, dolls, construction, books, plushies, dolls, construction, just all the way around. And like one mention of Twitter and I think 3 mentions of Facebook in, you know, tens of thousands of square feet in 2010. I was like, holy crap, this is an analog business.
Right.
And downstairs is the digital business, and can we bridge them with physical, digital technology?
But
so,
mass production kind of works on a scale, on a financial scale. You built a prototype and it cost how much?
£200,000.
200,000?
Yeah. So that's more than you think. So for a lot of people, that's like, holy shit, that's a lot of money.
For me.
For building physical stuff, or even top-end digital stuff, it was not that much money. Like a lot of the game projects at Channel 4 were kind of a minimum spend of about 250. And the more expensive ones are kind of 750, and obviously bigger games have millions and millions and millions. Right. So what we built was a digital demo, but also a manufacturing pipeline demo and the physical demo. Right. And then we went and raised the real money to actually build a team.
You took a bit of a digital approach to building this business though, right? Because you've been very candid that the first versions were not the cutest, cuddliest dolls on earth.
That's right. Well, so the vision, going back, because I didn't quite answer the question, the vision was virtual goods that produce physical goods. So we set up as a games company that would produce toys. And when I went out to raise the money, a lot of people were like, well, which one is it? Are you a games company or are you a toys company? Because you can't be both. We're like, no, you don't get it. We are both. There has to be both. It's kind of the point, is that you take a 3D mesh from a game and you build the software in order to make that 3D mesh into a 3D product. How do you separate that? Well, no, you've got to choose one or the other. So I went around and found the VCs and type of people who weren't quite that like black and white about the whole thing. And so we set up as the toys and games thing. And then with that bit of money, what happened was actually when we went round, people said, well, we also get that you can make a game. Like, we can see lots of games with virtual goods. That exists. But 3D printed consumer-facing products, they don't really exist. So, and plus, you guys, you're not manufacturers, right? So by this point, I'd found my co-founders. So I quit my job, gone and approached Joe, my COO, and Silka, the CDO. We'd gone and basically said, come and join this crazy idea. And but Joe's background is in digital media. Silka's background, he built Habbo Hotel. Luke, our CTO at the time, he was the guy who did the tools for Little Big Planet. So all digital people. So basically, we got given the money, but we also had to prove that it could happen. So we built a demo and put it live. And we started to sell physical product. So at that point, it was like, okay, so we can do it, right? This can be done. Although what you can't see is this is string and sellotape, and the dolls themselves were bone white. Not toy safe, etc. So, but we left it live, and so we're doing live product development. Were
you plugged into the maker culture from the very beginning? I mean, because you've benefited from their support. They've helped you actually shape the product in some cases.
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I'm a huge fan of maker culture, and the maker scene, and maker fair, and make magazine.
But did you know that? Did you know that you could rely on that in the early days?
Well, so to be honest, no, and I'm not sure, like when you say rely on it, that's really interesting, because when we set out, again, when we said toys and games and we're going to use 3D printing, immediately people thought, oh, kids will print their own toys at home, right? And we were like, no, because actually, even though that's the narrative of, you know, there'll be a 3D printer on every desk, it hasn't happened yet, and it's not going to happen for a while. So if you were going to try and build a commercial business on expecting your customers to be able to print at home, at the moment you're talking like a couple of thousand.
Right. You had to have faith, I guess is my point, right?
Yeah. But so at the same time, we were like, well, the cool stuff about maker culture is the democratization of access to tech, and that kind of, let's have a go. Right. I'm not a trained person in this, but I can Google. Okay. And so let's do that. And so that's the kind of maker culture that we want to encourage, that, and especially in kids, is that idea of, you can make your own toy, but you can make the clothes to go on your toy, and then you can make the furniture to go around it, and then Hell, you can make some electronics to stick in it and turn it into a robot, and then you can put it in a car. And in fact, why don't you take it onto a rocket and send it to the moon? That kind of thing, just to like not just limit it down to playing with dolls, but to actually just kind of open up and go, make everything.
So that initial vision, I'll get off this in a second, but was it to take on Mattel? What was the big goal?
So yeah,
on the very first
when you
day?
build your business plan and you go and do your 10 deck 30 point whatever, what is it, 30 minutes, 20 point type,
I don't know,
10
I'm not
slides.
the one who started a business.
Yeah. So when you do that, ours was 15 slides,
Yeah.
you have to show ambition, you have to do the maths.
Right.
So obviously we looked at Mattel and Hasbro and folks like that, but we also looked at people like EA, and we looked at the maker culture and the emergence of accessible 3D printing. But yeah, so I mean, Mattel American Girl is a kind of customizable doll in the sense that what they've done is brute force the problem. So there's actually 40 dolls that you can choose from that look kind of like you. And that's a 400 or probably like $500 million now business a year for Mattel in the States only. So we were like, well, that's $109 for an American Girl, and you can sort of customize it. That kind of proves the market that there's a market for expensive, semi-customizable dolls. Oh, good.
So that works.
So yeah,
Works
so
for
that,
you.
yeah, you can do that kind of
So in the introduction, it was mentioned that there's a lot of talk about 3D printing right now, and it's often followed by the sentence, the new industrial revolution. This is a book that was written by Chris Anderson. It came out last year. Chris is the former editor of Wired in the US. Really, really interesting, good book. But when we've spoken, you have not necessarily been as convinced that it will stand up to the scrutiny of driving through a new industrial revolution, or it won't deliver on that promise.
No, I totally believe it can. What I try to do is just to slightly balance. In some cases, there's been a little bit of frothing at the mouth when it comes to 3D printing, not least because when you actually see it in action half the time, it is fucking amazing, right? So, and I swear on purpose there, because a lot of people can't believe their eyes. And so inevitably they go, well, we can print houses on the moon. And that's when you start to go, whoa, yes, but like it's going to take 30 years, not 2. Right. So there's just an element of that. So no, I mean, I believe in it completely. So I felt the same way about 3D printing when I actually went and researched it properly. I felt the same way as I did when I kind of first got in the net in 94, 5, whatever, and saw Netscape 1 and then viewed Source and started building websites, and it was like, this changes everything. Right. And so I do feel that it does change everything. Not so much in the sense of, oh, can I print my own iPhone? No, you can't print your own iPhone. You're still going to manufacture iPhones. But can you make something that you want to make? Maybe, right? What it means is that anybody in this room can go and make an object. And previously you couldn't do that, right? So going back to the 200K thing, let's talk about, let's use toys as an example. So if you had an idea for a doll, you would not be able to go and make it unless you happen to have £100,000 to spend on molds and access to a factory just to produce the first kind of working product. And then you'd have to run off a series of 5, 10, 15, whatever, how many thousand, and you'd have to have a deal with your retailer, and you'd have to have it in your warehouse, and you'd have to have that whole thing set up before you could even find out whether you're able to sell your thing, right? Whereas now, that goes away. It just goes away.
And what is the opportunity for London? This is probably the point where I should read this quote. So this is there are 2 books called Makers. This is the one, as I say, that was written by Chris, but
they're friends.
He references Corey's book in it, which I think is the beginning of this, where he says, the days of companies with names like General Electric and General Mills and General Motors are over. The money on the table is like a krill, a billion little entrepreneurial opportunities that can be discovered and exploited by smart, creative people. I mean, London is a place where, you know, we don't have a lot of manufacturing left, right?
No.
In the UK.
No, not really.
Live here.
I think we probably have more than everybody realises, but it's not the Isambard Kingdom Brunel days anymore.
But it's a creative culture.
Yeah.
So
hugely.
What do you think? I mean,
2% of exports.
You know the stats. Do you feel like you're the beginning? Obviously, there's a maker movement, but do you think that you are at the start of a new sort of 3D printing movement here?
Well, so again, what this does is it means that if you want to manufacture something, you don't have to go to China. And there's nothing wrong with China. Well, there's a lot wrong in the shipping and but like in principle, you can get to China really easily now through things like Alibaba. But now, again, you don't have to. So we print in London and Amsterdam. I think it just means that London's always had a history of, well, some history of manufacturing and engineering. What's really gutting is the building in front of my flat. I live behind Old Street roundabout, and the building, I've been there for years, and the building in front of my flat is being yanked down, and it's an old toy factory. And they're knocking it down to make fancy pants student residences. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're in a light industrial building up the road, which has got a good concrete floor, so we're allowed to have machines in it and make a mess. Okay. And so we can put machines in now. Like, that's awesome. Whereas previously, I think when you think of a factory, you think of a giant room full of stuff, whereas now we have like a distributed manufacturing network where there's one machine here, and there's one machine over there, and there's one machine over there, and they're all doing the same thing, but they're networked.
Cool. All right, so we'll move forward a little bit. It's been a big year for you. You've been out to LA hanging out with will.i.am. Joe Roach, the co-founder, gave a couple dolls to Prince Harry and the Prime Minister in New York, and you got in the papers and on the news. You're in Selfridges, selling dolls and Selfridges, and of course, the third hottest startup in London. Yeah. So do you feel like you've hit an inflection point, or do you feel like this has been a turning point for you?
Yes. I mean, yes. So, very much so. So basically, anytime somebody mentions 3D printing, the phone starts ringing, slightly inevitably. But at the same time, we actually don't consider ourselves out of alpha yet. Right? We're a software company. We're doing live iteration. And if the launch last summer was the demo, we got toy safety in February of this year, and then we put an app out in March. And the game's coming out in January, and we went into Selfridges in August. So we're just kind of doing all these things, that, you know, along a sort of line. And I would consider the product to be at beta once the game is out and has been iterated on for about 6 months. So kind of this time next year, towards the run-up of next Christmas. So what's weird about it is we're visible. We're doing it in front of everybody, right? So when Mattel created Monster High, it took 4 years, I'm told, from concept to shelf, total secrecy, until bang, out it comes with 50 million marketing budget or whatever. And Lego Friends took 4 years to make as well. And we're kind of like, we've gone from demo to Selfridges in kind of just over a year, but ordinarily it would be secret. So all of the things that have kind of gone wrong or broken is completely public, which is hilarious.
Does that kind of vulnerability, do you think, help you in some way?
Yeah! Come on!
Because I covered the Raspberry Pi, and I know when they launched, they thought they were going to sell like 10,000 at most, and they sold like 1.7 million.
Exactly. No, so this goes back to the maker thing. So definitely having that vulnerability and having that sort of, shh, look, do you want to kind of join in with this? Early adopters come along, and they really like that. The downside, obviously, although we've yet to see this, but this is what everybody worries about. You know, every time I speak to an investor, they're like, well, aren't you worried that Mattel's just going to come along and copy you? Right. Well, what am I supposed to do about that anyway? Right. I mean, you know, it's
Are you worried about that?
No.
Well, Asda this week, I read that Asda is allowing people to get themselves scanned and 3D printed for £40.
Yeah, well, I think this is the thing. Like, if you're going to worry about Mattel copying you, so A, I've worked in big corporations and I know how they work, and they're not fast, usually. But B, if somebody's going to copy you, so this is the same thing of like, well, aren't you going to patent everything? No, because like, what am I supposed to do if Mattel come along and go, yeah, we're just going to do it as well? What I'm going to sue them? Yeah. So it doesn't work that way. I personally believe that if you, the most important thing that you can garner is attention and love from your customers, and grow it like that. And then if somebody tries to come along and copy you or whatever, you've got that as your little, that's a defensive system. That's a protective, caring system. The patent system doesn't give a shit. Right. So, you know, and I don't mean that in a really venal way. I just mean genuinely. Like, it makes business sense. As a startup, as a small startup, you can't wake up every morning going, oh, Mattel are going to copy us. What are we going to do? Right. Because otherwise you'd never get anything done.
This is an extraordinary looking doll, and I know this because we have one at our house. My daughter has 2 Makies.
She has an awesome nerd kid.
Thanks, yeah.
She's brilliant.
She's almost 7. And we went to see the Makie store. It was part of the Wired pop-up in December. And she asked for Makie, and they're a bit expensive. But I was really proud of her for wanting it.
Gotcha.
And she designed it. So I sat with my daughter, who's then 6, and she designed her own doll on the computer, and it was amazing.
So the incredibly painful thing about it is we're making pennies on them as well.
Right.
So this is again part of the beta thing. And again, that's a classic example. I probably shouldn't admit that in public. But the reason they're highly priced is because they cost a fortune to make.
Yeah.
Compared to the whole business of upfront and then each doll. So I was told the other day that Barbie spends more on spends more on packaging the doll than the doll.
Right.
Like literally the paper and plastic costs more than the product at this point. And it's the opposite for us. So ABS plastic is about €5 a kilo, and the powdered nylon that goes through the 3D printers to make these is 90 euros a kilo. So just on a basic materials cost, it's way, way, way higher. But again, going back to the business model, is we knew that because we'd done the research at the front, and the business was always that we designed, that we're still looking at and hoping is going to come about, is that we have a digital product that produces virtual goods for sale, that produces also physical goods for sale, and it was always supposed to be kind of 70-30. So it's like we're still running on fumes and other people's money, but like the model
Don't worry,
will be
web businesses do it all the time. Even Twitter is not making
totally. I mean, that's why that's what you do,
Yeah,
right? This is risk capital for that exact reason. Nobody has done this before,
Right.
so we had to figure it out. And like I said, we're doing it quite publicly. But
So I wanted to ask you about.
It wasn't like we could do a fast follow or any of that fun stuff.
Well, you never know when you're going to be really taking off when the Sanver brothers launch their Makie clone. So they have color now. They have color, and they have increasingly trendy outfits.
Yeah, we're getting better and better at that.
I know a lot about this doll. And when I first met you, you were dipping heads in tea.
That's right.
And onions.
Boiling them in PG tips.
Yeah.
So the powder that comes out of the printer is bone white. And obviously when they first came out, they were bone white like this, kind of creepy looking.
Yeah.
And extra creepy looking, I should say. And we were like, well, what do we do? So you can't put colored powder into the printers because once a color is in, it never comes out, right? So we were looking around for suppliers who were willing to brick their computer and put some colors in, and we couldn't find any. So it has to be post-processed. And again, it's one of those things where that knowledge is still emerging, right? So we looked around and I said, how do you dye this stuff? And somebody said, oh, Dylon. So I took a doll home and stuck it in the washing machine with a packet of Dylon, and it didn't work. It came out and it hadn't taken. I was like, and so we went around and, looked around, and then it turns out, oh, actually you need industrial Dylon, which you have to buy in Germany. And but by this point, we were like, well, what else can we chuck in the washing machine type thing? So we did PG tips, and that produced a fairly decent Caucasian. We did blueberry and saffron and coffee and all sorts of stuff. It was like mud and water pie at one point. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And ink, just kind of anything with any kind of vaguely skin colory stuff. And the tea was good, but then by this point, the dyes folk had kind of caught up with us, and we spoke to somebody, and they said, no, here's the range of industrials. So we got pale brown, medium brown, and dark brown. And unfortunately, with Dylon, the pale brown comes out kind of pinky, and the dark brown comes out nice and brown, but the medium brown comes out green. So we were like, oh, that's a bit odd. And then we were like, well, maybe some people want green. So we left it in.
Yeah. They do have pointy ears after all.
Right. If you want to make an elf, you can make an elf. And meanwhile, we're still working. So now we've got 2 more browns, which are just about to come online. And then we've also got some fun colors. So we've got like pink and orange and yellow and stuff like that coming out as well. So the kind of options will just carry on.
It sounds like a fun job. So you're coming out with even cuter Makies.
Yeah.
This sounds like a strange question, but what's the business rationale behind that?
So we've been selling a lot to adults and some kids, kind of 60-40.
Right.
But the doll market is a kid-based market. There is a large collector's market, but the the avatar-based big-headed collector's market is in Japan and Korea, and so you really need to be based there, or at least fluent in that language, ideally, to go and do business. I mean, I can't really rock up in Japan and go, hi, and just start doing business because I don't speak the language. So, and then the American collector doll market is the pin-headed celebrity doll stuff. So that's all Princess Diana and Michelle Obama.
You can knock off one or two of those, no?
Well, yeah, we managed Cameron. So
oh, yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we were looking at those, and either way, there's not, you'd have to kind of be really specific to build a business there. The big business is in 0 to 12, mostly, well, no, it's not mostly female, actually. It's just 0 to 12. Mm-hmm. So dolls are generally for girls, and action figures are generally for boys. So we made action dolls.
Cool. And the price will be the same or lower?
No, the price is going to come down. So the price is, again, it's a factor of the now. So it's a factor of the price of materials, the price of the machines. So the printer that we print on costs 150,000 euros, and the big one is 500,000 euros. Right. But most of the key patents in those machines are going to expire next year. So when you go back to FDM, which is the squeezing plastic out of a nozzle, the MakerBots of it, there's like 500 different types of kind of $2,000 desktop printer. That stuff was patented, 7 years ago or so. Came out of patent. Professor Bowyer down at Portsmouth, I think it was, anyway, Adrian Bowyer of the RepRap, he kind of looked at it and went, I can duplicate that now and stick it open source, which he did, and that's why there are 500 FDMs. So the same needs to happen for the powder-based stuff. So for those that don't know, there's kind of 3 main types of 3D printing. There's the extrusion type, where you get a kind of ridged effect, but it's cheap and cheerful because it's ABS or PLA. There's liquid, which is resin cured, UV cured resin usually. You get super, super detail, but it's kind of only in yellow or whatever, like kind of urine-y yellow. And it's good for things like architects.
Wouldn't use
and then there's the powdered nylon or powdered gypsum sort of stuff, which is the full color stuff. Yeah. And that produces a really nice, just object quality, but specifically the nylon is toy safe. Anyway, hopefully with the powder-based stuff, as soon as those key patents are out of the way, we'll see the same sort of proliferation over the next 5 years. So where was I going with this?
Well, no, I asked you a question and you were answering it.
What was the question?
It was about the cost. It was about making cuter dolls at a lesser price. I'm wondering if there's like a Moore's Law effect
There
here.
should be. So with the MakerBot, which is now like $2,000, that was $70,000 10 years ago. Right. So there's a similar powder-based printer called the Blue Printer, which is just about to come out, which is $10,000. So that process is happening. So we're like poised to kind of benefit from that. And then anyway, you start saving money with scale, because you can buy the powder at bulk, you can run the clothes off at a factory instead of doing them individually and stuff like that.
So you're also moving into other areas as well, a game, the narrative, if you can talk about that.
Yeah.
So tell me about the game, because you've come from digital media, and in that world, you've gone into physical products and 3D printing. Why are you now going back into games? So
the games never went away. So the way you make a Makie is through basically what we call Doll Builder, but it's an app. And we use Unity to build, which is an engine piece of middleware, and it exports to the kind of not so good Flash version on the web. Plus we've got the iOS app at the moment, and then the game will come out. Now, going back to the 70-30, the digital physical thing, the game is supposed to be the beginning of why you would create a Makie other than you can, right? So there's the types of customer who's going to come along and go, oh, I can make my own, that's really awesome. But then there's another big group of customers who kind of need a story world and this is really specific to kids as well. There's a kind of story world that they want to be part of. Like, why do you want to be? What is a Makie, right? So I found out the other day, somebody said, why do you think there are so many Batman toys and no Superman toys?
I don't know.
Batman's things are all externalities. So you can role play Batman because you just need the belt and the car and the cape and you're Batman. Right. Because he's just a human, but he's got all this cool gear. Yeah.
His parents
Superman
were killed when he was
internalized.
a kid,
yeah, if you're not, yeah, exactly. Superman's powers come from magic.
Right.
So you put on a cape, but you're not Superman. And it's that thing. So why do you want to role play being a Makie? So yeah, we need to bring in the narrative and we need to bring in the kind of essence of what a Makie is. So the game is about making.
But that's creative. I mean, that's going to take more of your time, more creativity. You're going to throw some money at it. Yeah. Yeah,
it's taken a lot of time. And to be honest, you know, it's not World of Warcraft. It's like a really simple little game. But it's taken a lot of time. But what it is a resource management game. So you're going to grow materials, like cotton plants and rabbits for Angora. And then you're going to take the materials and take them into your workshop and put them through your machines. And that will produce textiles. And you've got a little 3D printer in there. And you can put your rubber in the 3D printer and you can make buttons and stuff. And then you can draw on the textiles to make clothes with cloth on. And then in your dress-up room, you get to show off what you've made and then show off to each other and kind of make stuff for each other and this and the other. The difference being that we can also, in the future, not that far in the future, kind of next week.
Are you launching this next week?
No, as in we've got the concept coming back.
Oh, okay, okay.
But the game needs to come out first, which is in January, and then we'll do the texturizer stuff kind of next summer. But where I'm going with this is you'll be able to doodle on the cloth, but we will then be able to print those doodles onto real cloth and send it out as a clothing kit to make. So not only have you drawn on your digital avatar, but you also have physical version of clothing and doll.
So Mr. Makie should watch out.
No, Mr. Makie's perfectly safe. Makie, the biggest change actually for Makie is that they really need to scramble to get onto mobile. Mm-hmm. So kids, the tablet has just overtaken the console as the most popular computing platform for kids. And that's before this Christmas. So like the tablet is it. That's it, right? That's their thing. And it's going to be majority Android, although they will want the iOS version, but they'll get Android. And they'll be happy with it. God
Alice lives in an Apple-free household.
I do. We're an anti-Apple household. But the thing about Makie is, so they've got the characters and they just need to get onto the tablet. But interestingly, a lot of people have said, why don't you do 3D printing? Why don't you work with Makie or whatever, something like that. The thing about toys, the hardest thing in Toyland is, other than money.
Other than money, I don't know, coming up with the concepts.
The hardest thing, toys, any toys, painting. Painting toys.
Really?
Totally done by hand.
So
Isn't that ridiculous?
Is this painted?
Skylanders are hand painted, that's hand painted. Oh. But the great thing about a humanoid is that you only need to do a little bit. This is why we haven't done Gundam.
Oh, I see.
Right. Okay. So, like, Skylanders are hand painted. You know, you name it, they're hand painted. At best, they might have a kind of tampo thing where they've, because if it's a million of the same thing, you can sort of stamp out some stuff. But like Skylanders, ladies in China, hand painting stuff. So Makie, you look at that, that's like 2,000 little characters that are basically differentiated only by color.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But Makie really took off when they moved into physical goods. I mean, it was very popular beforehand, but it really changed things for them. So I'm wondering, you're kind of starting in the physical gaming world and then moving into digital.
Yeah, so they grew. I mean, what they did, if you want to scrape it back to bare bones, what Makie did was they created a narrative universe, and they started with games, and that's popular with kids, and so they became popular with kids. Mm-hmm. Like, equally, there are lots of people who start a narrative universe and they do it on telly. That's also popular with kids. Right. So, you know, Peppa Pig or Octonauts, pretty big. And also doing that kind of But basically what you do is if you create the sort of, I hate calling it this, but they do call it property, you should think, well, is this a game, a comic, a book, you know, a toy or whatever. And in fact, most people are now thinking about how they can do all of that. So I was at MIP Junior this week and the Mattel lady was there and she was talking about Monster High and she was like, this is what Monster High was at launch. And it was a website, an animated series on YouTube, and the DVD was in planning, and there were 2 mobile games, and they had the kind of backpacks and the clothing range already in the sort of first pass, and then they had the dolls, and then they had the accessories for the and they were like all out at the same time. So I think the days of sort of doing one thing, I mean, Mattel can afford to do it all at once. And what happened with Makie was they had a success, and then because they had a success, the licensing people turn up. Licensing is fascinating. You go to the licensing show, and it's people selling sleeping bags. And they're the sleeping bag company, and they'll go around and buy licenses to all sorts of stuff.
So you're also moving into narrative. You're trying to create a TV show? Can you explain what that is?
So, I mean, it's sensible when you're creating the narrative of any sort of thing like this for kids to think about it in those terms, telling stories, whether it's a TV show or a comic book. At the moment, we are putting together the narrative in the TV show form, because it's kind of, I think, the biggest, most complicated thing you could probably think of. I'm also really interested in a comic book. But yeah, if we think about the Makies and the world of Makies in that kind of visual storytelling world, and then you can see how you might do a magazine or a comic or maybe even a story or a painting book or whatever. Yeah, but that will go into the game from the get-go.
And to what extent does your daughter influence what you do? Because she was, I think early on the website it says that she wanted a space pirate.
Yeah.
So does she continue to influence the kinds of products you create?
So for her, dolls are like so uncool because it's what one of her parents does. Like, I mean, she likes them, but she's more interested in making junk bots at the moment. So she takes all of the recycling and a roll of gaffer tape and makes these huge junk bots out of rubbish, which is awesome. I'm thinking, God, that's pretty good actually. What could you package that up?
That could be Makie 3.0.
Yeah,
I want to ask you a couple of questions just about Tech City before we move to questions from the audience. You actually had another startup, I didn't know this, here in East London in 2000, was it?
98 to 2002.
Yeah, so you saw it before and then, during the sort of Tech City Silicon Roundabout thing.
Yeah.
Do you sense that there's meaningful momentum in Tech City?
Yeah, huge. Huge. So we had a dot-com bubble, right? And I was right in the middle of it. And so the startup I did last time was a Java software company doing entertainment-y things for entertainment brands. So it was avatars, hence my love of avatars, forums, live Java chat, interviewing celebrities online with chat rooms. Do you remember that stuff?
Yeah.
Chat rooms and IM and that kind of stuff. And basically what happened was it was a B to B. So we had clients and it was a dot-com boom and bust. So in 98 we had loads of clients coming to us and saying, can you provide us with these services? Can you come and make Harry Potter magical creature maker, that kind of thing. And then the other side of 2000 it started to slide as they all started to panic and take things in-house. Right. But around then, it was tiny. There was nobody on the streets around here. I mean, nobody. It was empty. And it did feel like a bit of a sham. Like the boo.com, busts through however many millions in however many weeks. And it did feel like you don't even see these people. What the hell is going on? Now it feels real. Really real. It is real. Like, there are hundreds of startups around here.
Because there's a sentiment that sometimes attention brings froth, brings distraction.
Brings froth. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
But you feel supported and you feel you're actually getting some benefit from the other companies here, the attention from the government? Yeah.
I mean, it just feels like very much part of the community. But it's fun going and getting your coffee and hearing somebody go, yeah, well, GitHub is doing behind you, and you're like, what are you doing? So I'm always eavesdropping. Yeah, but it's nice, And then there's just the walk to work. You always bump into some friendly nerds.
I just want to say thanks to Alice. I'm so excited that you came here. I'm really interested to see what you do next. So appreciate it.